Blues Ain't No Mockingbird by Tony Cade Bambara. A reading by Lisa M. Kendrick. The puddle had frozen over, and me and Kathy went stomping in it. The twins from next door, Tyrone and Terry, were swinging so high out of sight we forgot we were waiting our turn on the tire. Kathy jumped up and came down hard on her heels and started tap dancing. And the frozen patch splintering every which way underneath the kind of spooky. Looks like a plastic spider web, she said. A sort of weird spider, I guess, with many mental problems. But really, it looked like the crystal paperweight Granny kept in the parlor. She was on the back porch, Granny was, making the cakes drunk. The old ladle dripping rum into the Christmas tins, like it used to drip maple syrup into the pails when we lived in the Judson's woods, like it poured cider into the vats when we were on that Cooper place, like it used to scoop buttermilk and soft cheese when we lived at the dairy. Go tell that man we ain't a bunch of trees. Ma'am? I said to tell that man to get away from here with that camera. Me and Kathy look over toward the meadow where the men with the station wagon been roaming around all morning. The tall man with a huge camera lassoed to his shoulder was buzzing our way. They making movie pictures, yelled Tyrone, stiffening his legs and twisting so the tire'd come down slow so they could see. They're making movie pictures, sang out Terry. That boy don't never have anything original to say, said Kathy grown up. By the time the man with the camera had cut across our neighbor's yard, the twins were out of the trees, swinging low, and Granny was onto the steps, the screen door bamming soft and scratchy against her palms. We thought we'd get a shot or two of the house and everything, and then, good morning, Granny cut him off and smiled that smile. Good morning, he said, head all down the way Bingo does when you yell at him about the bones on the kitchen floor. Nice place you got here, Auntie. We thought we'd take a... Did you? Said Granny with her eyebrows. Kathy pulled up her socks and giggled. Nice things here, said the man, buzzing his camera over the yard. The pecan barrels, the sled, me and Kathy, the flowers, the printed stones along the driveway, the trees, the twins, the tool shed. I don't know about the thing, the it, and the stuff, said Granny, still talking with her eyebrows. Just people is here what I tend to consider. Cameraman stopped buzzing. Kathy giggled into her collar. Morning, ladies, a new man said. He had come up behind us when we weren't looking. And gents, discovering the twins, giving him a nasty look. We're filming for the country, he said, with a smile. Mind if we shoot a bit around here? I do indeed, said Granny with no smile. Smiling Man was smiling up a storm. So was Kathy. But he didn't seem to have another word to say. So he and the cameraman backed out to the yard. But you could hear that camera buzzing still. Suppose you just shut that machine off, said Granny real low through her teeth, and took a step down off the porch, and then another. Now, Auntie, Camera said, pointing the thing straight at her. Your mama and I are not related. Smiling Man got his notebook out and a chewed up pencil. Listen, he said, moving back into our yard. We'd like to have a statement from you for the film. We're filming for the county, see? Part of the food stamp campaign. You know about the food stamps. Granny said nothing. Maybe there's something you want to say for the film. I see you grow your own vegetables. He smiled real nice. If more folks did that, see, there'd be no need. Granny wasn't saying nothing, so they backed on out, buzzing at our clothesline and the twins' bicycles, then back on down to the meadow. The twins were dangling in the tire looking at Granny. Me and Kathy were waiting too, 'cause Granny always got something to say. She teaches steady with no let up. I was on this bridge one time, she started off, was a crowd 'cause this man was going to jump, you understand? And a minister was there, and the police and some other folks. His woman was there too. What was they doing? Asked Tyrone. Trying to talk him out of it was what they was doing. The minister talking about how it was a mortal sin, suicide. His woman taking bites out of her own hand and not even knowing it, so nervous and crying and talking fast. So what happened? Asked Tyrone. So here comes this person with a camera, taking pictures of the man and the minister and the woman, taking pictures of this man in his misery about to jump. "'Cause life's so bad and people been messing with him so bad. This person taking up the whole roll of film practically, but saving a few, of course." "Of course," said Kathy, hating the person. Me standing there wondering how Kathy knew it was "of course" when I didn't, and it was my grandmother. After a while, Tyrone said, "Did he jump?" "Yeah, did he jump?" said Terry, all eager. And Granny just stared at the twins till their faces swallow up the eager, and they don't even care anymore about the man jumping. Then she goes back onto the porch and lets the screen door go for itself. I'm looking to Kathy to finish the story because she knows Granny's whole story before even me. Like, she knew how come we moved so much. And Kathy ain't but a third cousin we picked up on the way last Thanksgiving visit. But she knew it was on account of people driving Granny crazy till she'd get up in the night and start packing, mumbling and packing and waking everybody up saying, "Let's get on away from here before I kill me somebody." Like people wouldn't pay her for things like they said they would, or Mr. Judson bringing us a box of old clothes and raggedy magazines, or Mrs. Cooper coming in our kitchen and touching everything and saying how clean it all was. Granny going crazy and Granddaddy Kane pulling her off the people saying, "Now, now, Cora." But next day loading up the truck with rocks all in his jaw, madder than Granny in the first place. "I read a story once," said Kathy, sounding like Granny Teacher, "about this lady Goldilocks who barged into a house that wasn't even hers, and not invited, you understand, messed over the people's groceries, broke up the people's furniture, had the nerve to sleep in their bed." "Then what happened?" asked Tyrone. "What they do, the folks, when they come in into all this mess? Did they make her pay for it?" asked Terry, making a fist. "I'd have made her pay me." I didn't even ask. I could see Kathy, actress, was very likely to just walk away and leave us in mystery about this story, which I heard was about some bears. "Did they throw her out?" asked Tyrone, like his father sounds when he's being extra nasty plus to the washing machine man. "Woulda," said Terry. "I would have gone upside her head with my fist, and you would have done what you always do. Go cry to mama, you big baby," said Tyrone. So naturally, Terry starts hitting on Tyrone, and next thing you know, they're tumbling out the tire and rolling on the ground. But Granny didn't say a thing, or send the twins home, or step out on the steps to tell us about how we can't afford to be fighting amongst ourselves. She didn't say nothing. So I get into the tire and take my turn. And I could see her leaning up against the pantry table, staring at the cake she was putting up for the Christmas sale, mumbling real low and grumpy and holding her forehead like it wanted to fall off and mess up the rum cakes. Behind me, I hear, before I can see, Granddaddy Kane coming through the woods in his field boots. Then I twist around to see the shiny black oilskin cutting through what little left there was of yellows, reds, and oranges. His great white head not quite round because of this bloody thing high on his shoulder, like he was wearing a cap on sideways. He takes the shortcut through the pecan grove, and the sound of twigs snapping overhead and underfoot travels clear and cold all the way up to us. And here comes Smiling and Camera up behind him, like they was going to do something. Folks like to go for him sometimes. Kathy says it's because he's so tall and quiet and like a king, and people just can't stand it. But Smiling and Camera don't hit him on the head or nothing. They just buzz on him as he stalks by them with chicken hawk slung over his shoulder, skulking, dripping red down the back of his oilskin. He passes the porch and stops a second for Granny to see he's caught that hawk at last, but she's just staring and mumbling, and not at the hawk. So he nails the bird to the tool shed door, the hammering cracking through the eardrums, and the bird flapping himself to death and drooling down the door to paint the gravel in the driveway red, then brown, then black. And the two men moving up on tiptoe like they was invisible or we were blind one. "Get them purses out of my flower bed, Mr. Kane," say Granny, moaning real low like at a funeral. "How come your grandmother calls her husband Mr. Kane all the time?" Tyrone whispers all loud and noisy from the city and don't know no better, like his mama, Miss Myrtle, tell us never mind the formality, as if we had no better breeding than to call her Myrtle plain. And then this awful thing, A giant hawk come wailing up over the meadow, flying low and tilted, screaming, zigzagging through the pecan grove, breaking branches and hollering, snapping past the clothesline, flying every which way, flying into things, reckless with crazy. He's come to claim his mate, say Kathy fast, and ducks down. We all fall, quick and flat, into the gravel driveway, stones scraping my face. I squinch my eyes open again at the hawk on the door, trying to fly up out of her death like it was just a sack flown into by mistake. Her body holding her there to that nail, though. The mate beating the air overhead and clutching for hair, for heads, for landing space. The cameraman ducking and bending and running and falling, jiggling the camera and scared, and smiling, jumping up and down, swiping at the huge bird, trying to bring the hawk down with just his raggedy old cap. Granddaddy Kane straight up and silent, watching the circles of the hawk, then aiming the hammer off his wrist. The giant bird falling, silent and slow. Then here comes Cameron smiling all big and bad now that the awful screeching thing is on its back and broken. Here they come. And Granddaddy Kane looks up at them like it was the first time noticing, but not paying them too much mind because he's listening. We all listening to that low groaning music coming from the porch. And we figure any minute, something in my back tells me any minute now, Granny gonna burst through that screen with something in her hand and murder on her mind. So Granddaddy say above the buzzin' but quiet, "Good day, gentlemen." Just like that. Like he'd invited them in to play cards and they'd stayed too long and all the sandwiches were gone and Reverend Webb was dropping by and it was time to go. They didn't know what to do. But like Kathy say, folks can't stand Granddaddy, tall and silent and like a king. They can't neither. The smile the men smiling is pulling the mouth back and showing teeth. Looking like the wolf man, both of them. Then Granddaddy holds his hand out, this huge hand I used to sit in when I was a baby, and he'd carry me through the house to my mother like I was a gift on a tray, like he used to on the trains. They called the other men just waiters, but they spoke of Granddaddy separate and said the waiter, and said he had engines in his feet and motors in his hands, and couldn't no train throw him off, and couldn't nobody turn him around. They were big enough for motors, his hands were. He held that one hand out all still, and it getting to be not at all a hand, but a person in itself. He wants you to hand him the camera, smiling whispers to camera, tilting his head to talk secret like they was in the jungle or something and come upon a native that don't speak the language. The men start untying the straps, and they put the camera into the great hand, speckled with the hawk's blood, all black and crackly now. And the hand don't even drop with the weight. Just the fingers move, curl up around the machine. But Granddaddy looking straight at the men. They looking at each other and everywhere but at Granddaddy's face. "We filming for the county, see," say smiling. "We put together a movie for the food stamp program, filming all around these parts, filming for the county." "Can I have my camera back?" say the tall man with no machine on his shoulder, but still keeping it high like the camera was there or needed to be. "Please, sir." Then Granddaddy's other hand flies up like a sudden and gentle bird, slaps down fast on top of the camera, and lifts off half like it was a calabash cut for sharing. "Hey!" Cameraman jumps forward. He gathers up the parts into his chest and everything unrolling and falling all over. "What you trying to do? You'll ruin the film." He looks down into his chest of metal reels and things like he's protecting a kitten from the cold. "You standing in the Mrs. Flower bed," say Granddaddy. "This is our own place." The two men look at him, then at each other, then back at the mess on the camera's man's chest, and they just back off. One saying over and over all the way down the meadow, "Watch it, Bruno. Keep your fingers off the film." Then Granddaddy picks up the hammer and jams it into the oilskin pocket, scrapes his boots, and goes into the house. And you can hear the squish of his boots heading through the house. And you can see the funny shadow he throws from the parlor window onto the ground by the string bean patch, the hammer dragging the pocket of the oilskin out so Granddaddy look even wider. Granny was humming now, high, not low and grumbly. And she was doing the cakes again. You could smell the molasses from the rum. "There's this story I'm going to write one day," say Kathy Dreamer, "about the proper use of the hammer." Can I be in it? Tyrone say with his hand up like it was a matter of first come, first served. Perhaps, say Kathy, climbing onto the tire to pump us up. If you there and ready.